Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the warm glow of the living room, laughter and excitement melded into one, captured by the eager smiles of three kindred spirits. A small slip of paper held in trembling hands, a testament to their daring game. But in the shadow of their merriment, a figure sat silently, his expression muffled. The tension between brothers and sisters is palpable here, and doesn't bode well for the future. That was the deal. And we vote unanimously. Claire, the youngest, at 26, added with a mischievous sparkle in her eye, that Asher becomes Madison for the weekend. Asher dropped his hands and stared at his sisters in disbelief. His brown hair fell across his forehead, disheveled from running his fingers through it repeatedly in frustration. He wore a plain navy blue t-shirt and jeans, comfortable, unremarkable men's clothing that would soon be replaced.
Madison, you've already picked out a name?
He sighed heavily. The fantasy football league had been his idea, a way to bond with his sisters during family gatherings. How was he supposed to know they'd actually become good at it? Or that they'd create such a mortifying penalty for the loser? Emma stood, hands on hips. Not Madison. Madison, with 2 Ds. More unique that way. And more feminine, Claire added with a wink.
I hate all of you right now,
Asher muttered, though there was no real venom in his voice. No, you don't, Olivia countered, standing up. And just think, by Sunday night, you'll have a whole new appreciation for what we go through as women. Claire bounced up excitedly. I'll get the makeup! I've got hair covered, Emma declared. And I, Olivia said with a dramatic flourish, will handle the wardrobe. The sisters scattered like startled birds, each rushing to gather supplies for their brother's transformation, leaving Asher alone with his dread.
This is going to be the longest weekend of my life,
he muttered to the empty room. 3 hours later, Asher barely recognized the person staring back from the full-length mirror in Emma's bedroom. His sisters had worked with the focused intensity of artists creating a masterpiece. Emma had secured an auburn wig on his head, the long, glossy strands falling in perfect curls past his shoulders. Claire had applied makeup with surprising skill, contouring his face to soften his jawline and emphasizing his naturally long eyelashes with mascara. Olivia had forced him into a padded bra and hip enhancers before presenting him with a pink sundress that flowed to just above his knees.
I look ridiculous,
Asher said, but his voice lacked conviction as he turned slightly, watching the dress swirl around his legs. You look beautiful, Emma corrected, adjusting one of the auburn curls. Honestly, it's annoying how pretty you are as a girl. Olivia handed him a pair of white sandals with a small heel. These should fit. You've got surprisingly dainty feet for a guy. Asher slipped them on, wobbling slightly before finding his balance. How do women walk in these all day? Those are barely heels, Claire scoffed, arranging a delicate silver bracelet on his wrist. Wait until we put you in proper pumps tomorrow. Tomorrow? Asher's eyes widened.
What's happening tomorrow?
The sisters exchanged glances. A silent communication developed over decades. Shopping trip, Emma announced. Every proper girl needs more than one outfit. I can't go out in public like this, Asher protested, gesturing down at himself. People will know. Know what? Olivia challenged. That you're actually our brother? Trust me, no one will guess. You're passing with flying colors. The ultimate test, Claire declared, pulling out her phone. "Family photo time!" Before Asher could object, his sisters clustered around him, positioning him in the center. Claire held out her phone and snapped several pictures. "See for yourself," she said, showing him the results. Asher stared at the screen. 4 women smiled back at him, 3 he recognized as his sisters, and 1 stranger with auburn hair and a shy smile who somehow resembled him. If he hadn't known better, he would have assumed they were all sisters by birth. "Well?" Emma prompted. "I guess it's not as bad as I thought," Asher admitted reluctantly. "That's the spirit, Madison!" Olivia squeezed his shoulders. "Now, let's go downstairs and practice your feminine voice and walk." Dinner that evening was a surreal experience. The 4 siblings ordered pizza and ate in the living room of the house they'd gathered in for their monthly family weekend, a tradition started after their parents retired to Florida. "Small bites, Madison," Emma instructed when Asher took a large chunk out of his slice. "Ladies don't shovel food." Asher rolled his eyes but complied, consciously taking smaller bites. "How long do I have to keep this up?" "Until Sunday evening," Claire reminded him. "That's the deal."
Even sleeping?
He asked. "Especially sleeping," Olivia replied. "The wig stays on, the nightgown goes on, and Madison has a slumber party with her sisters." Asher groaned, but found himself surprisingly less bothered than he'd expected. The dress was actually comfortable, airy in a way his usual clothes weren't. And there was something oddly liberating about the transformation, like stepping into someone else's life temporarily. "Fine," he conceded. "But no pictures on social media." "Agreed," Emma said. "This stays between us siblings." Later that night, dressed in a borrowed pale blue nightgown, Asher lay between Olivia and Claire on Emma's king-sized bed, listening to his sisters chat about work, relationships, and childhood memories. "Remember when Asher used to steal Mom's lipstick?" Claire giggled, nudging him. "I was 4, he protested. "And I thought it was candy." "Sure you did," Olivia teased. "Just like you accidentally wore my tutu that time." "That was a dare from Emma!" His eldest sister laughed. "I'd forgotten about that. You actually looked cute prancing around the living room." Asher found himself laughing along, the awkwardness of his current situation fading as familiar sibling banter took over. As the lights went out and his sister's breathing deepened into sleep, he lay awake, strangely content in the soft nightgown, the weight of the auburn wig unfamiliar but not unpleasant against the pillow. For the first time, he wondered if perhaps this weekend wouldn't be so terrible after all. Saturday morning brought a flurry of activity. Asher was awakened by Claire bouncing on the bed, already fully dressed in a yellow blouse and white pants. "Rise and shine, Madison! Beauty routine starts in 20 minutes!" Asher sat up groggily, the auburn hair tumbling around his shoulders. For a disorienting moment, he forgot about the previous day's transformation until he caught sight of his painted nails gripping the blanket. "I need coffee first," he mumbled, his voice rough with sleep. "Ladies first!" Emma called from the doorway, already styled for the day in a blue dress. "Bathroom's yours, Madison. There's a pink toothbrush for you." The morning proceeded in a whirlwind of activities Asher had never considered part of a daily routine. Facial cleansing, moisturizing, makeup application, hair styling, outfit selection. By the time he emerged from Emma's room, he wore a light blue sundress with white flowers. The auburn wig now styled in a loose braid draped over one shoulder. "You're a natural," Olivia approved, circling him. Those legs were wasted on manhood.
Shut up,
Asher muttered, but couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his lips when he caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. The shopping trip proved less traumatic than anticipated. The sisters took him to a mall 2 towns over, where nobody knew them. To Asher's amazement, not a single person gave him a second glance. He was accepted unquestioningly as a woman. "See? Told you," Emma whispered as they browsed through dresses. Nobody suspects a thing. The day developed a dreamlike quality as Asher found himself drawn to styles and colors he'd never considered before. Under his sister's guidance, he selected several dresses, skirts, and tops that flattered his newly feminine figure.
"What do you think of this one?"
he asked, holding up a green sundress against himself.
"Perfect, with your auburn hair,"
Claire approved.
"Your coloring really works with earth tones."
Only after speaking did Asher realize he'd asked the question naturally, without prompting or teasing from his sisters. Something was shifting inside him, a curiosity, an openness to this experience that went beyond merely enduring a lost bet. In the changing room, trying on a floral wrap dress, he studied his reflection. The person looking back seemed more relaxed, more authentic somehow than the man who had reluctantly agreed to this charade yesterday. The thought was both unsettling and intriguing. "Everything okay in there, Madison?" Olivia called.
"Fine,"
he replied, smoothing the dress over his hips.
"Just thinking."
Saturday evening found the siblings at a restaurant. Asher, or rather Madison, dressed in one of the new purchases, a burgundy dress that complemented the auburn wig perfectly, paired with simple black flats. "To Madison," Emma toasted, raising her wine glass, "who's turning out to be a much more pleasant dining companion than Asher ever was." "Hear, hear," Claire and Olivia echoed, clinking glasses. Asher rolled his eyes, but joined the toast. "You're all ridiculous," says the one who spent 20 minutes deciding between lipstick shades earlier. Claire teased. "I wanted it to match the dress," Asher defended, then stopped, realizing how natural that concern had become. Had it only been a day? Throughout dinner, he found himself adopting mannerisms he'd observed in his sisters, crossing his legs at the knee, tucking hair behind his ear, gesturing more expressively when speaking. None of it felt forced or theatrical. It emerged naturally, as if these behaviors had always been within him, waiting for permission to surface. "You seem different," Olivia observed quietly as they waited for dessert.
"Different how?"
Asher asked, nervously twisting the bracelet on his wrist. "More relaxed," she said thoughtfully. "Happier, maybe?" Before he could respond, the waiter arrived with their desserts, and the moment passed. But Olivia's observation lingered in his mind throughout the remainder of the evening. Back at the house, the 4 siblings settled in the living room for movie night. Asher curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath him, the burgundy dress spread around him. As the movie played, he became increasingly aware of how comfortable he felt, not just in the clothing, but in his skin, in the role of Madison. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider a troubling question. What if this wasn't just about a weekend bet? What if there was a reason this felt so right? Sunday dawned with a strange mixture of relief and regret. By evening, the bet would be complete, and Asher would return to his normal life. The thought brought less comfort than he'd expected. "Last day as our sister," Emma remarked over breakfast. Any final requests for Madison's farewell tour? Asher hesitated, dressed in a casual white dress with small blue flowers, the auburn hair loose around his shoulders. Actually, I've been thinking. The sisters exchanged glances. About? Claire prompted.
This weekend,
He said carefully.
it hasn't been what I expected.
You mean you haven't hated every minute? Olivia teased. No, Asher admitted. I haven't hated it at all, and that's confusing. A silence fell over the table, the sisters sensing the seriousness beneath his words.
It feels right.
He continued quietly.
Being Madison feels more natural than being Asher ever did. I don't know what that means, but I'm not ready for it to end tonight.
Emma reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Whatever it means, we're here for you. Maybe, Claire suggested gently. This bet just gave you permission to explore something you've always felt. Asher nodded slowly. Maybe. I just know I'm not ready to go back. Then don't, Olivia said simply. Stay Madison for as long as you need. We could vote on it, Emma suggested, with a small smile. Make it official. Asher looked up, a hopeful expression crossing his face. You'd be okay with that? With me staying as her? All in favor of Madison becoming a permanent member of our sisterhood, Emma announced, raising her hand. Claire and Olivia's hands shot up immediately. Unanimous, Claire declared. Welcome to sisterhood permanently, Madison. Relief and joy washed over Asher. No, Madison now. The name felt right, felt like coming home. Thank you, she whispered, tears threatening to spill. Don't cry, Olivia warned. Claire did too good a job on your makeup to ruin it now. They all laughed, breaking the emotional tension, but something fundamental had changed. What had begun as a weekend bet had become the beginning of a new life. Over the next month, Madison bloomed. She moved in with Emma temporarily, working remotely while figuring out the practical aspects of her transition. The auburn wig gave way to her own hair, which she began growing out, and her wardrobe expanded to include all manner of feminine clothing, with a particular fondness for floral dresses that her sisters encouraged. How did none of us see this coming? Claire wondered one evening as the four of them sat in Emma's living room. Madison, dressed in a lavender sundress that complemented her growing auburn hair, was practicing applying eyeliner under Olivia's guidance. I didn't even see it coming myself, Madison admitted. Or maybe I did, but never let myself acknowledge it. Well, we're making up for lost time now, Emma declared. 3 decades of sister stuff to catch up on. Madison smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression that her siblings had rarely seen on Asher's face. I wouldn't have had the courage without you 3. Please, Olivia scoffed. We just made you fulfill a bet. You did the hard part yourself. Still, Madison insisted, not everyone has family who'd be so supportive. We always wanted another sister anyway, Claire teased. You just took the scenic route to get here. The transition wasn't without challenges. Telling their parents required courage, though they proved more accepting than anyone anticipated. Colleagues and friends had various reactions, but Madison faced them with a quiet confidence that grew stronger each day. Some days were harder than others. There were moments of doubt, moments when the path seemed too difficult. But then, Madison would catch her reflection, the auburn hair framing a face that looked more right with each passing day, the posture that had naturally become more graceful, the smile that came more easily, and know with certainty that she had made the right choice. 6 months after the fateful bet, the 4 sisters gathered again for their monthly family weekend. Madison arrived last, wearing a green dress that set off her now shoulder-length auburn hair, which had grown out beautifully. "Sorry I'm late," she called, setting down her overnight bag. "Makeup consultation ran long." "Consultations?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "You're better at winged eyeliner than I am already." Madison laughed. "Not for me. I've been thinking of getting certified as a makeup artist. Maybe helping others who are transitioning." "That's perfect for you," Claire enthused. "You've always had an eye for detail." Olivia emerged from the kitchen with glasses of wine. "To Madison," she proposed, "who turned a lost bet into a winning life. And to my sisters," Madison added, raising her glass, "who knew me better than I knew myself." As they clinked glasses, Madison reflected on the journey that had begun in this very room. What had started as embarrassment had transformed into the most authentic version of herself she'd ever known. The bet was long since paid, but the gift her sisters had given her, permission to discover her true self, was something she would be grateful for every day of her new life. The auburn-haired woman set down her wine glass and smiled at her siblings. "Who's up for fantasy football this season? I think I've got a winning strategy." Her sisters groaned in unison, but their laughter filled the room. 4 women, 4 sisters, exactly as they were always meant to be. A year to the day after the transformation began, Madison stood before the mirror in her own apartment, dressed in a pale blue sundress that had become one of her favorites. Her auburn hair, now falling past her shoulders, caught the morning light streaming through the window. The doorbell rang, announcing her sister's arrival for their celebratory brunch. "Coming!" she called, giving her reflection one last appraising look. The person who gazed back bore little resemblance to the man who had reluctantly agreed to a weekend of dress-up. In his place stood a confident woman, content in her identity, at peace with her reflection. Madison opened the door to find her 3 sisters, arms laden with gifts and a cake box. "Happy rebirthday!" Claire exclaimed, pushing past to set down her packages. "We're celebrating in style," Emma announced, following with the cake. "1 year of our sister Madison." Olivia brought up the rear with a bottle of champagne. "Though technically you were always our sister. It just took a lost bet for all of us to figure it out." Madison laughed, embracing each of them in turn. "Best bet I ever lost." They settled in the living room, popping the champagne and raising their glasses. "To Madison," Emma began. "To authenticity," Olivia added. "To family," Claire concluded. "To all of it," Madison said softly. "And to whatever comes next." As they clinked glasses, she realized that while the journey had begun with a weekend bet, it had no end point, only a continuing path forward, one she would walk with her sisters beside her, dressed in the floral prints she'd come to love, her auburn hair catching the light, her steps sure and true in the life that had always been waiting for her to discover. The bet was long since settled, but Madison had won something far more valuable than any fantasy football league. She had won herself, her truth, her future, all because she'd had the courage to lose.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!